Hello, folks. This is Calen from the Hashknife Ranch, joining you at the Dunrovin Ranch with one of my stories. This one is actually something that I came up with while I was home on leave in June of 2021, and it made me think of a lot of things. Some I've seen. You can probably see them on things like National Geographic or Discovery. There used to be a small series. I don't know if it's still around. I think it was called The Last American Cowboy or something, and there was a particular scene where the family had to make a decision relating to hay for the winter, and that made me think of some things that were happening this year. We were talking about cattle markets, high hay prices, because um, there's just honestly a really bad drought 2021, which made hay prices increase. We had to cut back on the herd in order to make a little bit of money for that hay. There's a lot of things, a lot of business decisions that are made. During that time when I was home on leave, those decisions were made in the car while we were driving to see friends, to go meet up during dinner or something like that. It might be a 30-minute car ride, but my mom, my dad, and I are on the phones talking to each other, sitting inside the cab of this car, discussing prices and trying to figure out what the market might be like. Again, that was in a car, but it made me think about my own family and how at one point we used to have similar conversations before my grandfather died, where we sat around a table, and much like that series that I was discussing earlier, we made the same decisions that those people made, and we are just one family of many that continue to do this, whether it be beef, hogs, sheep, it doesn't matter. Maybe even just crops in general. This is a real thing with the agricultural community, with families being a family business. Everybody is tied to it, whether they like it or not, until they leave, and then they either decide to return or to never come back. But all of those things stem from, to an extent, you pull the information and the knowledge from the older generation, but it's also sometimes a democracy too. Everybody kind of has their own vote. So while that's not the case in this story, it is kind of felt within the context of it. So with that, today I will be reading Family Business. Everyone sat around the small dining table. All eyes looked at the old man sitting near the end. He was quiet and thoughtful as he considered the situation. This was his 8th decade, and he had worked cattle over 70 years now. He knew how to move a pair simply by shifting his weight in the dirt. He had a knack for knowing when grass would be heavy and when it would be light. He understood the weather and the cycles he saw as he grew from a boy all the way to now. This one aspect, though, he never could predict: the market. He was aware of current events but needed details. His voice was like the strike of a gavel bringing the courtroom to order. All right, son, what are you hearing? The younger man looked at him from the opposite end of the table. There were no plates or food on the dining surface. It was hot outside, and everyone enjoyed a cold drink inside the air-conditioned home. But this was a business meeting, not a social gathering. All hands were brought from the pastures and corrals for this discussion. While nothing good from everyone I've talked to, the news keeps giving lousy numbers, and the reports on all the websites are not looking good. The best things we've heard came from the boys and their social media accounts. None of it official, just what people are sharing. The old man looked annoyed as he patiently listened to the convenience of phones, but he relented and looked at the 2 youngest men in the house, each in their 20s, but both hard workers and regularly looking through their devices. Boys, what have you got? He grumbled. The oldest tepidly entered the conversation. Grandpa, it's all current information, which means we can't use any of it to foresee October. I can only tell you the here and now. Frankly, most of it isn't local. The majority is in the Midwest. We are seeing not great, but decent prices for 500-600-pound calves. The problem is these are all summer sales. We still have 4 months to go before we are ready to pull the trigger, which leads to my other point. The future is very questionable. This year is hard on everyone, meaning we may likely be part of a bigger liquidation flood. When we sell, I anticipate others disposing of entire herds. We can't sell now, but if we do it in October, we may lose, and lose bad. The information and analysis provided by his grandson was good, laid out facts and reasonable assumptions along with trends that gave a clear picture alongside national context. He may make a decent businessman with cattle yet. The old man furrowed his brow, crossed his arms, and reached at his wrinkled and clean shaven chin to ponder their state of affairs. Never had he seen anything like this. Men were not squandering money and losing ranches by their own accord. They were getting pushed off family homesteads through cutthroat corporate business. Good businessmen and women were losing, and it was foreshadowing the family circumstances. He did not like any of this, but it was the three generations sitting at the table devising out a plan to survive the year that just might get them through. If only we can squeeze by to next year, he thought. After all his time on the ranch, this was a new issue. Meetings like this occurred so everyone could learn and take his counsel as the elder. He always had an answer. Everyone knew he would get them out, but this one, he was not so certain. Finally, he looked up and stared into everyone's eyes to comfort them. It did the opposite. It confirmed suspicions and only added unneeded stress. This was a family business. They might succeed, they might fail, but they would all do it together. Looking across the table at his son and ranch manager, he painfully said the unthinkable. I don't know, son. As his voice trailed off, those 4 words deflated the household. He had no answer for the first time in decades. There was no way to tell what to do until they were forced to play their hand. He sat back, sighed, and said, I guess we'll just have to wait it out and see. That was it, the verdict. They all gave a brisk nod, stood up from their chairs, and went back to work.